This episode brought to you by coffee. What is up, everyone? Welcome to, I believe this is episode 6 of Open Opinions. So today, I'm going to go ahead and state this like as directly and as, I guess, straightforward as possible for those of you that are expecting this to basically be an only cannabis podcast. This is not only going to be a weed podcast. Obviously, I'm going to be covering some like scientific things about weed and some things about weed, some long-form weed topics on here. But this is going to be a mix of like a little bit of everything. Like me just giving advice to you guys, me talking about life, me bringing on guests and interviewing guests, and then, like I just said, occasionally me talking about weed. But today is going to be more of an episode of me just kind of rambling. And what I basically did for this is I saw a video on Facebook, I think, and it was like someone that was essentially like questioning their 16-year-old self. So I kind of twisted that idea a little bit and decided to write out a list of just 10 basic things. I guess they're not basic at all. They're 10 really important things that I really wish I could have told myself when I was 16. So I guess the idea behind this is like I would say these rules apply to anyone at any age, and you can take these and apply these to your 21, to your 35, to your 50-year-old life. Like these are all things that apply to my life constantly, and I just wish I would have known, but am also glad that I've learned and picked up. So you don't have to be 16 for these to actually give you any kind of positive. You can also be of any age and they give you positive, but I guess these are just things that I've learned, some of the most important things that I've learned. So 10 things that I would basically tell my stupid little fucking 16-year-old self. Oh my goodness, I am a professional at this podcasting thing. That's a double text that I just got hit with in the middle of this. But moving on, I'm probably going to be glancing over my computer here and there just because that's only for the video listeners. Actually, where I have all of my stuff written down, but I just have like a really basic outline list of things. And we're probably like words. We're going to ramble off of those. But the first one is actually just specifically, I'm going to word this one in comfort is complacency. So this is 100% not to just say like, if you're comfortable, you are complacent, or if you get comfortable, you're going to get complacent. But I think that there's a lot of complacency formed in comfort. And if I look back on like a lot of the most like digressive times or regressive times in my life, it was mostly when I was really, really, really comfortable kind of in what I was doing. So I've heard a lot of people say that like you get your work done, your best work done, or their best work done when they're, held over their fire, when they're over the coals. And I can say the same about myself. Like a lot of my best work, a lot of the best stuff I've ever created was usually honestly when my back was like up against that wall. But I don't think we need to always get super complacent when we're comfortable. I think that the best obvious way and the best thing to keep us out of that really complacent state is a realization of exactly this right here. You need to be able to check yourself in comfort. Like, it's really okay to be comfortable. And at that, it's actually really important to be comfortable sometimes, especially in regards to mental health and when you're struggling with your own mental health. Like, it is kind of important to approach that from a semi-comfortable state. But at the same time, a lot of the thing that pushes people to get out of that mental state is their back being against the wall. So like they need something to be able to push for. And it's something that like you need to be able to put that fire under your own ass. You need to be able to, when you're super comfortable, act as if you're not. Like, yes, mentally still be comfortable, still be financially comfortable or whatever, but never get complacently, comfortable in what you do. Always be literally striving to be the best you, to be progressing you, and to be learning about whatever you do. Like, I always think the saying that like the true master of anything doesn't call himself a master is a very important saying, as obviously there's a very certain meekness and humbleness / humility to being like a master of something. But at the same time, it's realizing that you don't know everything about anything, and there's always going to be someone who either knows something different or more than you. So truly actually being a master is constantly striving to learn. and not being like, I'm the best at what I do. Because when you claim something like that, your natural intuition and inhibition is going to be to stop learning and striving to be the best. You're like, I am the best. I'm already here. I've already made it to the place I need to be. When in reality, a lot of times that comfortable state, that state of I've made it to where I need to be, is a platform to launch on to more, to launch on to bigger. And if you just treat it as, oh, I've made it to where I need to be, I've made it to my destination, like I guess we can just set up camp here, then you're never going to find the town that was, 3 or 4 camps away. So it's okay to, get comfortable, pack up camp for a little bit, find yourself, but always try to pack that camp back up and move on to the next location, as there's that's growth. It's very, very important to us. And honestly, especially in this like lack of self-responsibility culture that social media breeds, seeing everyone do really well all the time, you just assume that their life is like, awesome all the time. We really only put the best of ourselves out there on social media most of the time. So, and then when someone tries to just either speak truths or speaks like negatives, people hate it. Like people are like, oh, fuck that. So like we as a society really only want to glorify and see the positives. And that's especially when it comes to, success and comfort. Like it's not all positives and comfort. There's a lot of negative growth and comfort if you allow it to become that way. So I guess that's the first little rambly point. I think that one is like, I've always considered that to be high on the list, so that's why I put it like up there. I think honestly, I ended up doing this the most important first and then the least important last, mostly just because I know how podcasts work, and unfortunately not all of you are going to listen through all of this. So I figured I'd hit you with some of the hot ones first, so they kind of honestly get less important to me. That right there is a very important lesson that I had to learn the hard way, and it took, and honestly I've learned it the hard way in a couple of different ways in life, but it took kind of understanding that to and just living it to learn it. So I thought it would be something that would be important to like relay onward and forward. The next one though is just learn the power of saying no, and then also the damage of saying yes too much. So let's break that down basically just like piece by piece. It's pretty simple. But what I mean by that is you really have to learn how to tell people no. Because the effect that you telling yes to someone and not following through has on the way they view your character and the way they view you quickly becomes a very damaging path to not only relationships, but just like how people see you. And realistically, this is something that's like, especially anxious people and socially anxious people have a really hard time understanding. But saying no to someone doesn't hurt that much. It really doesn't. Like, if you ask someone something and they say, no, I'm busy, or they're very straightforward about it, no, I've got this to do, it's usually not going to offend you that much at all. Honestly, it's not even going to really be a secondary thought in your head after you asking them and then them moving forward. But if you tell someone yes with no intentions of doing it, or you know that you have 3 things to do that day and you still tell them yes because I don't want to hurt their feelings. Like that's such a dangerous relationship breaking ideal, because it makes people think that you're characterally not someone who follows through. Like you don't have any follow through. And it really makes people lose trust in you and trust in what you're really saying. And it's very, 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 very easy to say just yeah, and stretch yourself 150 different ways before even really coming to the realization that you've stretched yourself so thin. But having that conscious realization that telling someone no, and honestly not lying about it, because the first thing we think about when someone texts us something, oh, I got to think of an excuse. That right there is like a weird justification that we're already trying to do with that. Like, no, be straightforward. No one really cares that much. Hey, do you want to hang out today? No, I'm busy. Provide something for more than that, though. Don't just say, no, I'm busy. Someone asks you, yo, you want to hang out this week? Or you want to hang out on Tuesday? Don't just say, first off, don't say yes And then when Tuesday comes and they hit you up, you just don't hit them up because they're going to be like, oh, he's a flake. Second, don't just say no, because that just leads like, well, why'd you just say no? Because like that's not, when it comes to relationships, something that like characterly people appreciate. So go like this: no, but then provide, something that makes them feel either understood or like not so much justified, but basically make it understood why you're explaining what you're explaining. So be like, hey, I can't hang out right now, but I'm not busy next Thursday. Let's go do it then. And you don't have to make up these long excuses. Like, oh, no, man, my dog ate my grandma's medical bill, so we got to go stop by the hospital this afternoon. And I was just thinking that I'm not going to really have time, man. Like, that's not a solution to anything. That's just a ramble that sounds like a justification for an excuse. Just, like I said, be like straightforward and honest. No, I don't really want to today, but maybe next Tuesday, I have a couple of hours. I'd love to see you. And then actually follow through next Tuesday. Don't just say that and not see them. Like, it's really important, if you're going to say yes, to follow through. It's also very important to be able to say no and not have to go through a mental gymnastic loop as to justify why you're saying no, because you have the full right to always say no, no matter what. So that's definitely one that I've struggled with. Like I've stretched myself too thin my entire life. I've always been the person that says yes to everyone and then tries to get everything done and tries to follow through with everything, only to realize I have to fuck like one person over or two people over because I stretched myself to 40 people. And then I feel like fucking garbage about the two people that I fucked over instead of feeling good about the 35 things I did. So like, it's much easier to just not stretch yourself to all of those limits and just stretch yourself to what you know and you're capable of following through with, as that's going to really what like fosters healthy, not only personal relationships, but business relationships and just friendships across the board at that, to be 100% honest. Sorry, I need to give myself some water. Man, this next one, this is a hard one for me to say, especially because I do not have a college degree. I ended my education in high school with a diploma. So this one is, school isn't dumb. And man, like I said, it's hard for me to say this because my views on especially further education in America are interesting, as our educational system in the US is fucked, but that's I'm not going to get political with this today. That being said, the model of choosing what you want to do in high school with no real path or course to really do so, and then paying between $30,000 and $100,000+ in debt by the time you're 23 to 25 to start your adult life with, man, that's fucking ballsy. That's a really interesting move in my opinion. And unfortunately, I'm one that falls under the thought pattern and the idea that there's a lot of degrees that are entirely irrelevant and should not be sought after, or they're just not necessary. I'm not saying that there's not ones that are also entirely necessary to go to school for. If you want to be a doctor, you should probably go to medical school. Like, if you want to be a scientist, you should probably go to like school to be a scientist. Astrophysics, probably should learn astrophysics. Like, there's very specific fields that should have an applied course of education for. But then there's also fields that unfortunately just like in real world application don't make any fucking sense. And marketing's one of them for most people. So like, if you want to go into marketing and you're not a self-driven person, then yeah, going down the path of understanding marketing at a very base level, understanding the ins and outs, might be something that for you establishes a really good course for you. So if people have a marketing degree, like, I'm not downplaying it. I think that for some people that's a very viable course. There's also some people who just internally have the knack for, one, either being able to teach themselves, or two, understanding fields in which they work in. And real field application in a field like marketing, like if you worked in an industry for 4 years and really made connections, networked, and got yourself involved deeply within that industry, you're going to be able to market naturally, organically within that industry much better than some random, degree, like first year, fresh out of college, like marketing degree student who doesn't know that specific applied field. So there's very specific things that are very important to go to college for. Like I said, there's very specific specified fields. And then I also think that there's people who just aren't self-motivated, self-driven enough to really have that like knack of starting a business or going about whatever field they need without a degree. So I'm not trying to downplay school by any means. That's why this is School is Not Dumb. I was one who always fell under the thought process of school's dumb, man. But especially high school, I really fucking wish I tried a little bit harder. And I say that as someone who literally is probably never going to have to, really do anything other than list my high school on a resume here and there. Like, it's not like they're even really going to be able to, like, check my transcripts. But I didn't get, like, perfect grades. I got, like, a 3... I don't think I got, like, 2.8. Like, a 2.8 to 3.0. So if someone, I was going into like law school, or I was going into like a very specific field that I wanted to change later in my life course, then they could go in and look at those transcripts, and they could go in and see, oh, he didn't get like phenomenal grades. Oh, he had 25 detentions because he didn't cut his hair. Like I was just a little shit in high school. I didn't understand that what I was doing did have meaning, and it was important at that. And I didn't do homework. Like that was why I didn't have great grades, because I was like, fuck homework, man. I'm just gonna do my own thing. I'm just gonna do my own like video gaming YouTube thing, which I guess eventually ended up working out well. But I think what I was not understanding is homework specifically is so important to adult life. That's funny enough. Like, I was always like, what the fuck am I doing this for? I'm never going to use this in life. The act of doing homework itself is a very practical adult skill. Because as an adult, no matter what you do, no matter your job, no matter what life you live, and no matter how much you love it, there's going to be shit you have to do every day that you don't want to. That you're like, why the fuck am I doing this? It's menial subtasks that you fucking hate, that you don't want to do. And yes, granted, the good thing about being an adult is you can do some of those tasks slightly intoxicated. You can do some of these tasks kind of high. You can do some of these tasks kind of tipsy. That's the one advantage of being an adult. But I think that's a very important applied skill that you do learn in high school, is how to follow through with things, how to do shit you don't want to do, how to turn in work every day. And that right there it's an applied sense of drive. They're trying to instill drive, and not everyone gets it. A lot of kids have this, especially nowadays, have this stupid mentality of, man, fuck this. I'm never going to fucking use this, dude. This isn't going to react to me in the real world. Like, yes. And I unfortunately learned that lesson the hard way, of not really doing my homework, becoming self-employed, and then really struggling to learn that applied sense of getting shit I didn't want to get done normally. And it was a lot harder to do in my 20s than it was if I would have just paid the fuck attention and been doing the shit that I should have in school, and been like, hey, this is something I don't want to do. I'm going to do it just so I learn this skill a little bit better, a little bit quicker. So school isn't dumb. Is there some aspects of school, especially in high school, that are ridiculous? 100%. But please enjoy it. Enjoy the time that you're having. Enjoy your friends. but don't make it only something that is like the most fun. Like, also apply yourself to shit. Have fun when you can have fun, because there's a lot of time to have fun in high school, but also at times pay attention and be serious when it's time to be serious. That's really all I have to say about school isn't dumb. This next one is something I probably learned in like my mid-20s, and this was a saying that I actually think I learned when I turned 20, not in my mid-20s. I'm in my mid-20s as if I'm like 26. I'm 23 right now. I'm not even in my mid-20s yet. I'm still in my early 20s. I meant to say as I turn 20. I don't know how that came out mid-20s though. But what I'm trying to say around that stony ramble, the next one actually is you judge yourself based on intentions, and everyone else judges you based on action. So we live in our heads every day, all day. This little voice in our head, this little guy in our head is something that we all every single day get to live within, get to hear, get to talk to, and other people are literally doing that exact same thing. They're having those same conversations. They're having those, not the same ones. They're having different conversations, different thoughts, different processes, but everyone is essentially in their heads. Like, we all are here. And the way that we see others is not in their heads. Like, I can't see your thoughts. I can't see what you're thinking. And most importantly, I can't see what you're intending. So this kind of ties back and goes into that point earlier of learn how to say no and learn, the power or like actually saying yes too much can have, the negative power it can have. And it's basically exactly this. Like, when you don't do something, whatever it is, you probably have a million reasons as to why you didn't do it. I was tired. This happens. This happens. This happens. Excuses. We can call them intentions. We can call them excuses. We can call them whatever you want. You're going to call them intentions. Other people are going to call them excuses, because they didn't see the thought processes. They don't know if those thought processes are real, and they're seeing and experiencing the action and the consequences of the action. So that's a very important thing to understand, is you see yourself quite a bit differently than everyone else does. Always. No matter what. Because you judge yourself and you judge everything in your life based on your intentions. Not so much your actions until you're aware of such. And honestly, this really did change the way that I dealt with people. This changed the way that I dealt with myself. This changed the way that I looked at a lot of things, because I realized that the scope of my being, the scope of who I am, is very, very internalized, and it's very, very basically subjective. And everyone else is going to have that same kind of internalized view. So if I say something, I have to do it. I can't come to them with 3 excuses or 10 excuses or 10 reasons or 10 intentions, because they don't care. They care about what played out and what happens. They care about the action, and that's what they're going to judge me and our friendship and our relationship based on. So you need to treat every relationship with that realization and just like blatant realization in mind. Also, it is so cold in my studio right now, guys. I'm actually probably going to die of hypothermia, because I can feel my fingers freezing and falling off one by one. That was totally not an exaggeration. But I'm going to go grab a fucking sweatshirt. So cut in the middle of the podcast. I don't normally do this, but it's fucking cold. It's basically finally that time of year where Washington is deciding that it wants to be winter, and it's also simultaneously coinciding with the time that my heater decided that it wanted to stop being a heater. So I need to get like a space heater or something for this fucking studio, as it is very cold in here right now. But as I was saying, I think I was pretty much done with that last point, so I'm just going to move on to my next one here. The next one is about, it's about saving. Yeah. So the next one is frugality is not uncool. Man, this is one that I think we all are guilty of probably believing at some point or sometime that saving money, being frugal, saving pennies, saving change, whatever the fuck it was bro's not cool. Bro's not the flex. Bro, you're not flexing. Yo, fuck flexing. No Flex 19 is very much, it's going to be a good 19, as it's so unrealistic, especially in the world of social media. Seeing social media influencers flex, oh my fucking god, is it embarrassing. Like, they think they're wealthy. They think that this is gonna go on forever. Oh, hun. No, we got like 5 years if we're good at what we do. We basically have the careers of NFL quarterbacks, and we make 100th of the money. So, like, if these kids are out here expecting this social media fame to last forever, I've got a really shitty story to show you. Look at every YouTuber that started in 2009, 8, 9, 10, and look at how many are around today. There's like 4. And guess what? None of them are the ones that are flexing super hard. It's all the ones that are being frugal with their money, that are investing it back into the content and the stuff that they create, and are trying to brand themselves, not just flexing a bunch of fucking stupid shit, trying to fit into a prerogative that they don't actually fit into, because they don't actually have anything. They've gotten famous off selling a lie, and now they have nothing, so they're trying to create something, or they're trying to fit into something. It's just so stupid to spend money like that. And like, I honestly, looping back around to the frugality is not uncool thing. It's just like, it's so important to save all of your money you make. If you make, let's say you get really fucking crazy lucky and fall into a career or work really hard. It's not crazy lucky. Let's say you work really fucking hard to find a really great career, and you're working that career making great money. I can tell you one thing that's probably the most important to you. Don't expect that to last forever. Save that money and live like you were living before. Don't, for the first 5 years of any career, in my opinion, really change up your lifestyle. Like, yes, live more comfortably in a sense of, you can buy, a nice pair of pants or a nice shirt here and there. Buy yourself the amenities, like some like a nice bed, some nice sheets or something. But don't go fucking the first year of you making good money, spend $30,000, $50,000, $100,000. That's ridiculous. If you're making $30,000 in a year, you should be saving most of that. You shouldn't be spending all of it. In a lot of cases, it's really not possible to not be frugal. So this is something that doesn't apply to everyone, as a lot of America lives paycheck to paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. But at the same time, they also have the newest electronic in their pocket, and they're also wearing the nicest, newest pair of shoes, and they're also going to Starbucks 3 times a week and eating fast food 4 or 5 times a week, when in reality, you don't have to be. Like, I know these are all comforts. I know they're all things that make our life easier, better, and more livable. And those are all things that we can justify to whatever level and means that we want to. But it's also really important to realize that if you save every bit of money, if you save every bit you can, if you truly live frugally and not live super comfortably, then it honestly can get you out of really shitty, tough situations. It's how you get out of those situations. Not living frugally in situations where you're not making lots of money and things aren't looking as if they're going to change. If you just continue living as you are, the path is going to be the same. The government's not going to save your ass. No one's going to come in and give you a bunch of money with the lottery or anything like that. Like, that's just not a realistic scope of life. So if you're in a place where you don't have a lot of money, find ways to cut corners to start saving. Like, that's my biggest honest advice to you, as it's a practical start somewhere that can hopefully one day get you, one step out of that, and then further and further and further and further. And obviously these are all super vague guidelines and expectations. Like, I'm not being like, oh, you're on disability and you make $150 a month? Well, get off your ass. Like, that's a very not realistic scope of everyone's situations, circumstances, privileges, and the things that people are afforded. But this is more specifically, like I said, it's things I would tell my 16-year-old self. So as a teenager, when I was sitting around like, bro, why do I never have any money? And I was just like buying video games that I didn't fucking play and eating McDonald's like 4 times a week. I was like, man, I'm working in this dish pit like 30 hours a week and I don't even have any fucking money because I'm just like blowing gas doing stupid shit. And like I said, like not really genuinely trying to actually have a savings or have money. And learning financial responsibility is very, very, very important. And it's something that's really not taught that much. So I think the idea of very specifically not really spending like you have money until you really have money. Because a lot of people are spending like they have hundreds of thousands of dollars when they have hundreds or thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands. Okay, so that was a pretty quick one. That one was like a really random one. And like, that's not to say I don't enjoy, like going back to the influencers flexing like crazy shit. I enjoy clothes. I enjoy watches. Like I almost always have a pretty nice watch on. That's as I, one, really love watches. I can tell you all about this watch. I can tell you all about all of my watches. Ask me in a stream sometime. It'll get me going for 20 minutes. Like I actually might do a full podcast on that at some point. Do like a watch collection show off. But I also realized that this is a very valid investment. And I've realized that from the very beginning. Like if you spend money on a watch and you actually spend a decent sum of money on a watch and you take care of it, and you also don't have 40 Rolexes in your house, who the fuck actually has diamond chains and really nice watches sitting around in the house? Terrible, 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 terrible idea. That's how you get all your shit stolen. If you have a nice watch, it should basically be either on your wrist or in a safety deposit box at the bank, in my opinion. But that's a new story. That's a different story for a different day. Looping all the way back around. This is an investment. Spending money on something like this is a very tangible investment, more than a car. In this day and age, I don't know about more than a property, and sometimes more than a property. But it's much more viable than going out and being like, oh, I'm gonna buy a fucking iced out, flexed out chain. Good luck selling that to the pawn shop in 10 years because there's not a market for iced out rapper chains unless you're fucking 6'9" and you have an audience that used to want to buy shit from you that probably doesn't anymore. But like, there's a tangible market for watches. You can buy a 1970s Rolex Submariner and you can buy a 2017 Rolex Submariner. Like, there's an established market that has always operated and will continue to operate as long as timepieces are still necessary. And timepieces are a pretty established thing in our society. So it's about, once you make money, being frugal with it to find things you can invest in to either make more money or keep that money. And I say this as someone who lost a lot of money in cryptocurrency. I'm not talking hundreds or even thousands. That's a 6 fucking digit loss. No, sorry, 5-digit loss. I lost about $11,000 in cryptocurrency, in Ethereum, in Litecoin, and I know why. That's the main thing I learned from cryptocurrency is I got caught up as a CUDA in a market that was not very tangible, that was essentially inflated from outside investors and lost a lot of fucking money doing so. And I think a lot of people lost a lot of money in cryptocurrency as it was essentially a scheme for people who were a little bit farther ahead of the curve to take advantage of those that were slightly behind it. And a lot of that is, like I said, is lack of frugality and not understanding financial responsibilities. So stock is always a gamble. I wouldn't say if you get a little bit of money, all these other people are like, download the Brotherhood app and try stock trading today. Which, I mean, will teach you a tangible, really cool skill that I'm sure you could make a little bit of extra side, like, hobby hustle money off of. But you could also definitely lose money off of. That's what I'm trying to say from the cryptocurrency. That was almost a flex. The cryptocurrency flex there, is you have to find things that are tangible long-term investments that are going to continue to keep making you money. You're going to lose in some, you're going to win on some, and it's better to play that gamble than it is just to blow all your fucking money and really never have a chance at maintenance. As what we do, no matter what we do in most industries, in most applied industries, isn't always going to last forever, isn't always going to be around forever. And money very much is something that comes and goes. And it comes in waves. Sometimes you're making lots of it. Sometimes you're making none of it. It's really honestly about finding ways to establish long-term forms of wealth, essentially. Riches are a facade. The difference between wealth and riches are not money making itself. Riches are you having to maintain the money. So if you don't have money making itself in investments and properties and whatever the fuck it is, then businesses even, then you're not wealthy. You're just rich. And rich is a facade. It's something that it's people trying to pretend that they actually have money. It's people trying to pretend that they're wealthy, because riches can go poof, gone in seconds if you don't understand management of them and how to hold on to them. And that's something we see a lot in this society today. Okay, so I think we're only like 5 in right now, man. We are not that far in, and I'm already going rambly mode on these. So let us see what the next one is. The next one actually is about diet and exercise. Man, this is one that I've I don't really think I've actually truly applied this one to any aspect of my life until recently, but diet and exercise is not only for aesthetic. And that's 100% how I viewed it as a fat kid, as I was like 230 in high school. And honestly, also how I viewed it when I was like super unhealthy off of losing like the weight that I did. When I after I lost my gallbladder and was to the point of like 160-ish and like borderline malnutrition, like malnourished, I still didn't I was working out. I was trying to kind of eat semi-healthily to maintain the figure that I had gotten. I just did air quotes for people who were listening on the audio podcast there. But now it's more of like, oh shit, like the way that I fuel my body and brain are literally the way that I get to operate within this vector of being every day. Like I wake up and put fuel in this body to either make it, you know, very functional or semi-functional or not functional at all. And what I mean by that is like if we wake up and we start our day off with fucking fast food and a beer, or fast food and a couple beers, you're probably going back to bed or some shit. Like that's you're either gonna fucking puke everywhere or you're going right the fuck back to bed, because you're not fueling the vector, the being that you're operating in. You're just giving it some shit and letting it be a rotting fucking sack of meat. Whereas if you wake up and you know, drink some water, you hydrate, you eat something that's like healthy for brain function. Blueberries are actually, I've heard, pretty decent in the morning to get your brain kind of like really firing. You take, you know, maybe some nootropics. You take whatever you have to take to get your brain to the perfect point that it has to be. You drink your coffee, like you take your stimulants like most of Americans do. And then you go about your day functionally. And like a lot of us are also cannabis consumers, so in that things that we consume, a lot of us hit the wake and bake really early, which I've even gone on to say, even as far recently, is like that's not the most productive way to start every morning. Like if you're starting your day with a really small little wake and bake and doing some yoga, which is a really that's like a phenomenal ass way to start most mornings. Wake up early, drink some water, eat like a little bit of fruit, and fucking start your morning with some yoga and like a small little wake and bake sesh with like a spoon. Sorry, excuse me, like a spoon pipe. I burped there. And you're gonna have, honestly, not only a really calm day. For me, it's usually a more productive day. And sleep also actually plays into this as well a lot. Like I always as a teenager was like, fuck it, man. I have the ability to basically only sleep for 4 hours and still be a human, so why not just do that every day? Then you start realizing as you like grow up and gain responsibilities and gain shit you have to do and realize that there's shit that you have to like maintain every day to live, that it's not the most productive means of like consistent function if you're functioning on like 40% brain power because your brain is just like, I don't know what's happening, you didn't let me sleep. It's not possible. So once you grow up, your body does start treating you differently. I think a part of growing up is obviously the way that the thing that we're operating in is changing and degrading and becoming older and becoming less functional and how that affects us. But I also definitely think it's priorities. Like we really don't, even the most fucking driven, gets their shit done teenager for the most part is pretty fucking lazy. Doesn't really do that much. Like most of their life is school. They might have a job, they might have sports, and then they hang out with friends. And they also probably love like video games or memes. I think that's what kids like nowadays, right? Video games and memes. That's the scope. But like, I think that as you grow up, you start realizing that you can, as a kid, be high as shit all the time. You can at 18 be high as fuck all the time because there's no reason not to be. But when you're 20 fucking 4 and you have to pay your bills and you have, relationships to maintain and you have a business to take care of and you have or a job to go to or pets to take care of, pets to feed, mouths to feed, like your way that you interface with your life changes and you realize that you can't just live blasted as fucking shit, high as fuck all the time, because it's not productive to the building of you. And as you get older, you also realize that like life is not going to last forever. Like I'm every day that I wake up getting a day closer to dying. And I'd rather not die in a state of, 18-year-old arrogance and ego and just like stupidity. Like I'd rather try to progress as far as I can, leave as much of an impact as I can, and be the best person that I can be every day. So it's growing up and realizing that a part of doing all of what I just said directly relates to how you treat your body, to what you're feeding it, to your health. Exercise is so important, not for only looking fucking good and getting all the Tinder biddies to swipe right. I should say Bumble biddies. Bumble biddies not only sounds better, but it also makes more sense because they actually do have to swipe right. Nonetheless, I guess they have to swipe right on both apps. I'm fucking rambling. It's also about really maintaining your brain and this thing that if you don't, you're going to start noticing bad effects. Like, I think that obviously me fucking up my knee like 4 times at a really young age was because I played football. But I also 100% think it played into my lack of health, my lack of wanting to exercise ever. I think it had to definitely do with my diet. Like I was eating garbage. Like I said, I was eating fast food 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. I would eat fast food 3 times a day sometimes, especially when I was working a lot. So I was not treating my body well. And I'm not surprised that it started to fall apart. But I can definitely tell you, like, once you start treating your body better, you feel stronger. Your joints feel stronger. Your back that's been hurting for weeks feels better. Like, you just feel more present. And especially with exercise, if you've had past injuries, if you've had something that's fucked up, if you have, like, problems exercising, this is going to really hurt to hear, but you have to hear it. Exercising is going to hurt a lot. Exercise for a long time hurt my knee. And every day I was consciously worried and aware that it was going to re-tear and re-break because I was exercising. But unfortunately, that's not how we should treat an injury, because if we treat it like that, it's going to hurt. It's going to get hurt again. If you just allow it to continue to keep being at the weak state that you left it once you're done with physical therapy, if you even did physical therapy, then it's going to degrade and degrade and degrade and degrade and degrade and just eventually get hurt again. That is the way of re-injury. It's not through safely exercising your joints and your muscles, even though they once might have been hurt, to get them back to a sense and a state of strength and normalcy. Instead of being, stuck in that state of like hurt, oh, my knee hurts, my back hurts, this hurts, that hurts. This is why the opiate epidemic exists. People don't like to be in pain. They don't want to be in pain. They don't want to accept personal struggle through the pain. And they find something that quells and quenches all of it. So they'd much rather take the substance than deal with the pain of rehabilitation. And that's a really hard thing for a lot of opiate addicts to hear, because, and I know this as someone who, through my family, I've had a lot of people, even in my family, personally, that have struggled with opiates, and like it's very much had an effect on me personally. So this is something that I have a very it's not like I'm speaking from a point of arrogance here, a very personal view on this. But I also think it's very much something that the opiate user, the opiate abuser has to work through. And I don't think opiate addictions are 100% because of opiates. I think a lot of it is just lack of responsible help for people that are mentally ill in this country and struggling with mental illnesses. But that's my end of basically diet and exercise. What you put in your body is not only for how you look, it's also for how you think, how you feel, how you act, what you are. We are essentially just a fucking experiment, a walking experiment. So try to put something good into that experiment, not just something that's going to make that experiment explode and dirty up the lab. Okay, so this next one is an interesting one. You want to be the person that when someone is, I'm actually going to phrase this with more, before I actually get to the point, I want to phrase this with more of an anecdote here. So we all know at least one person that you're hanging out with someone, right? And they get a text, they look at their phone, and they just go, fuck. Like, everyone has that person in their life where you get a text from them and it's always, it's fucking dumb, dude. It's always something, It's, can I get this? Or can I get help with this? Or can you help me with this? Or can I this? Like, there's always that person that you just look at your phone and you go, fuck. So I'm going to basically just quote this as the rule itself being, you want to be the person that when someone looks at their phone after you text them, they don't go, fuck. So it's definitely something that's, I think I remember even got this sentiment from someone else, but it's a really good, very, very, very simple way to live your life. Because it's in my opinion, I don't know, I think it's a way to avoid doing things to other people that you wouldn't want them to do to you. This is almost like my, I guess, weird example of the golden rule. Like, you need to essentially aspire to be something. And a lot of people's aspirations for themselves are so much higher than they need them to be. And especially when they are relating to how other people view them and how other people treat them. Like, everyone wants to be in this position of power. Like, oh, I gotta be the famous, the wealthy, No. Like, we're literally, as a society, reaching way too far with our goals. I think that we should aspire to be nothing other than like a good person, a genuinely good person. We should aspire to help the people around us and make an impact on the people around us. And I think in the most like comedic scale and comedic sense, that's exactly what this point is like, you want to help the people around you. You don't want to be the fucking person who's always, annoying them. But the next one is, this is an important one. Respect is 100% harder to earn than money. And your character is not worth $1. There's no dollar sign ever that is worth your character. It's not $1 million. It's not hundreds of thousands. It's not, there shouldn't be, at least, as you're defining yourself with money. You're defining yourself being like, I will sell myself for this amount. And once you do that, it creates a path of basically nothing but failure, as money's not a reality all the time in anyone's life. Even people who make insane amounts of it. Like, you can make a lot of money, you can spend it all, you can lose it all, you can make it back. That's the crazy thing about a capitalistic society, is you have the freedom to do such, to navigate the society in whatever way you so choose. But the one thing that you will never be able to gain back is respect once you've lost it. There's no financial amount of money, period, that will gain that for anyone. So, like I said, like, once you've lost money, money flows, man. Money comes, money goes. That was a bar. Oh shit. Someone write that down. Where the fuck's my notepad? But like, money comes and money goes. Like, it's not going to be something that you have to be like, oh, I'm never getting it back because I lost the money. I spent all the money I had. I'm never going to get it back. If you don't trust in yourself and believe in yourself, you won't. If you operate within that mentality, you won't. But respect is not something that's like that. You can't just like think about having more respect, work harder. I mean, you can work harder to gain more respect, but once you've lost it, you're literally basically running an uphill battle. You're going against the current, and it makes your job consistently much, much harder. You're going to spend more time trying to build respect and regain respect than you are actually working and staying in the lane that you're supposed to be in. And that's a hindrance to progression for anyone. So honestly, there's no amount of money. There shouldn't be amount of money that you sell yourself for, you sell out for. And I hate the sellout word, as in new age, like social media influence regards, it's mostly like, oh bro, you did a single product review, you're such a sellout. And I understood that in the early days of the internet, when it was like a MySpace age and bands were either indie bands or label bands, and you're like, you fucking sellouts, you're going with the label. Because you're definitely, when it comes to music labels, you're actually selling your soul. When it comes to self-employed people that are just making brand deals, obviously there's ways to do it and there's ways to not. That's something that's very apparent in our community alone. There's some people that are like, this is the greatest product of all time. You should buy the Super Bake Today. This thing hits like it rips. Doesn't even blow out a cloud. And then there's also people that just understand how to promote a product. And also, for me, it's transparency. That's all it is for me, as a viewer and as a creator. If someone's transparent with me, I'm like, get your bread, son. Fuck it. As long as it's not like to a point of ridiculousness and absurdity, And also, like I said, don't sell your morals to sell a shitty product. Like, only sell things that you agree with, endorse, and want to work with. Because if you are in this crazy ass position of people following you and watching you and being a friend of yours, they're going to listen to what you have to say. And if you're selling shit to them, they're going to be fucking pissed. Literally, I can think of it. This is crazy for me to say, as I always personally felt like I did a really, really good job at objectively reviewing products. Like, I broke down the pros, but I also very much broke down the cons. And a lot of companies don't want to work with me or didn't work with me / stopped working with me because of that. Because I was so objective and straightforward with my cons as well as the pros. But that's what births innovation, and that's what moves us forward. A company that's actually progressive is going to hear those cons and make a fucking V2 that improves those. So it's important to have a level of realness, obviously, for not only your sake, but for the sake of the community you operate within and for your audience, for your friends, for your viewers, for your fans, if you want to call them that. I think that word is fucking gross. Oh, my fans! Like, no, none of you are my fans. I'm sorry if you consider yourself a fan. You're a viewer. You're a friend. Like, you are a viewer of my content. You're very supportive. That's a friend. That's not a fucking fan. I'm not a musician who's standing on stage and you're fucking screaming at me, throwing your bras to me. Like, you're realistically, more than likely, 97% statistically a male. So you probably don't have a bra. I mean, I don't want to judge. But you're realistically a friend of mine. And we're on the same level. Like, I'm not on any raised platform or regard or soapbox or anything like that. Like, I am one of you that found a really crazy fucking position. I kind of, in a lot of ways, don't know how I got here. Like, I can say, oh, I worked really hard and I made content and, I interacted, but I don't think this was me that got me here. Because if it was me that got me here 100%, I would know how to tell you. I went from A to B to C to D to E. I can tell you the path. That's how that shit works. Most of us, if we're being honest with ourselves and aren't arrogant, egotistical, and self-fucking grandiose, we realize that we got here with a large dose of luck, being in the right place at the right time, finding the right people to support the right content that we were creating. That's all it is. I made videos at a time where there wasn't a lot of these kind of videos, which is why today, when I'm coming back to making content, I'm not just fakely making a bunch of bullshit that I used to make. There's hundreds and thousands of creators out there now that are doing exactly that, making weed videos, and that's their lane. I had a part in creating that lane, and I don't say that arrogantly. I don't say that with any ego, but it's now time for me to change that lane and to find a new one and to start creating content that isn't exactly like I did for the last 4 years. So I don't know how I got on that ramble. I don't know how I got on that rant, but I think it's mostly just that you can't sell your trust. You can't sell your respect for a dollar amount, especially in a social media influence position. Enough people buy enough shitty vaporizers and they're never coming back to you. Enough people buy your super hit where you get take a dab and a fucking hit at the same time with the car lighter. Like, cool. I'm just gonna not sell garbage that I wouldn't use though, as I think that that's extremely hindering, and you're gonna see it be hindering if you're doing it and playing it out. So I don't say that judgmentally. It just makes me sad that there's creators that I don't know if are gonna be there in a year or two because they've lost sight of the industry, they've lost sight of themselves, and they've lost sight of how things operate. So it's a scary thing to see, and you don't want to tell someone how to do their job because that's not your place. That's not your place ever in life, unless you're a boss. If you're a manager, then yes, technically it's actually exactly your place to tell someone how to do their job. But I'm not a manager, especially of these influencers. They're big boys. They can support themselves, and they've done so for a long time. So maybe I'm the wrong one. Maybe I'm the one that's operating in the world of craziness. Who fucking knows? But I also want to show views that are not shown, as it's important to have both sides of the story. Writing a one-sided story or reading a one-sided story, it makes you follow paths that you don't realize you're following, head first into a negative fucking hole. Like, it just makes you follow really shitty paths. Okay, so the next point is, you know far less than you think you do. And honestly, sometimes being super smart, being the smartest person, is saying nothing at all. And I've really, 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 really worked on this lately. And honestly, it's positive and negative, because I get a lot of people being like, bro, you're so arrogant. Why are you talking like you know it all? It's not so much talking like I know it all. It's not talking about what I don't know about. If someone approaches a topic in which I don't know about, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say, that's not something I don't know a lot about that. Or you should ask someone who knows a lot about that. I know my lane. I know my knowledge base. I know my applied knowledge base. And I know what I can teach other people. And it's just like, it's 100% being able to shut the fuck up sometimes and listen. Because listening sometimes to even people that you don't agree with their view can be of nothing but benefit. Like, I do hate the idea of trying to deplatform people that you don't agree with. It's really harmful, and it's also really stupid. Because if someone has a platform and they're speaking constantly their ideas that you might not personally agree with, that gives you constant access to, one, learning how to craft your arguments on what you believe, your ideals, because it's challenging what you believe. Not listening to someone with different ideals is not accepting the fact that you could be wrong. The fact that some of your views could be off. You're pretty settled in most of your views, probably, but you could be wrong on all of them entirely. And that's something that as someone, if you want to claim yourself as someone who's rational or smart, like, you need to do so. As accepting that I know almost nothing. I know way, 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 way less than even your average cannabis grower about weed. And I accept that. I obviously know a lot about weed. I know a lot about the consumption aspects. I do know a lot about growing, especially over the past few years. But am I a structural chemist that's sitting there, extracting, that also knows plant science to a T? No. So there's people out there that are much smarter than I am. But I don't look at them and vehemently oppose them, like, fuck you for knowing so much, you arrogant fuck. No, I'm like, teach me. Let me learn. What can we give each other? How can we make this relationship mutually beneficial? Like, how can I teach you? How can I somehow teach my applied knowledge base to you while you do the same to me? Let's challenge each other with debate. Let's challenge each other with facts. Let's challenge each other with ideas. It shouldn't just be this argument. People are so accustomed and attuned to argue. Me being one of them. Dude, tonally, it's so hard to not react aggressively on social media. Social media is made to adapt and basically read into what our psychology wants to interact with. And a lot of it is idea and the challenge of idea. But we're not doing it in a debate sense. We're doing it from a very argumentative sense. And we're not progressing the lines of information and the lines of like societal knowledge that way. We're basically just dividing and making everyone really pissed off at each other because you believe different than me. Yeah, that's what being a fucking human being is. That's what environmental conditioning is. That's what learning from, people in your life and mentors and all that fucking shit and experiencing things is for. Like, we should assume that everyone else thinks differently. We should assume that our thoughts are wrong, not immediately correct. So, two things I have to say to that specifically. One, don't be so quick to challenge other people from an argumentative state. Try to, in everything that you interact with on social media, just add some form of positivity. This is something I'm learning firsthand right now. And passion will not be mistaken. Factual passion will not be mistaken as that. It will be mistaken as anger. People will get defensive and you automatically lose them. You lose the connection to them. You lose the connection to trying to change their ideas. And unfortunately, in me being tonally kind of semi-incorrect over these past few weeks, I feel like I kind of missed the mark on some of the people that I could have reached. And it really frustrates me. That's why I apologize so straightforward about the tone of all of the tweets and Instagram posts and stuff that I've been posting. As you guys that agree with me. It's realistically the people who don't agree, the people that are stubborn-headed, the people that are probably mentally ill or extremely irresponsible, super young, the ones that need to hear it, that are taking this super heavy offense, those are the ones that I really, truly, personally, I wanted to target. And it's really frustrating that it missed the mark because I could have done so better. So I learned my lesson, obviously. That right there is not so much an example of not saying anything at all. That right there is more of an example of how you say things. But I think that applies to the same lesson all the same. Sometimes you know less than you know. And sometimes even when you feel like you're confidently, making the right decision and everything's right and you're factually correct, you may still have something that's slightly incorrect, like tone or passion or presentation. So give yourself a couple of seconds to breathe when you see something on social media. If you're reacting, try to react with a positive spin. If you're making it, give it a couple of seconds. Give it a couple of seconds to just fucking swim around in the idea, the ocean of your head, the thought pool of your motherfucking brain. Because sometimes ideas just need to sit for a second, especially when you're high. Sometimes you just need to draft that tweet, wake up in the morning, and really see if you need to send it. And that's something, like I said, your boy Joshua's learning very well. I'm learning to draft 8 times, send once. Not draft none, send 8 times. Okay, so is that all of them? Okay, I actually do have one more. The last one, man, this is one that is going to be controversial for some people, but for me personally, as the tendencies that run in my family and just a bunch of things related to, it does have some specific input to me, and that's why I'm saying this. I think that for substances in a whole, though, meaning alcohol, meaning cannabis, if you want to lump other party drugs in there, you can. I'm going to say alcohol and cannabis for the most part. Use them as a social tool. Do not use them as a life enhancer or a fun enhancer, experience enhancer, whatever you want to call it. Don't use it as an enhancement tool. As all that really does is give air to the idea that life is more fun intoxicated and that life is less livable sober. So, as I was saying at the beginning of this is especially for people that are accustomed to, I know in my family, unfortunately, I think my grandpa was an alcoholic. My dad struggled a little bit, but wasn't super, super terrible about it. But genomically, normally alcohol specifically is something that runs in families and honestly addiction kind of. So I think for me, it was really, really, really important to make this check And honestly, my parents were pretty proactive about teaching me in semi-responsible alcohol consumption. And I would say that like there's been periods in my life, especially like probably like 6-8 months ago, where I had like 2 or 3 months that I was drinking pretty much every day. I was drinking like 2, 3, 4, maybe even beers a night. And as someone with gastroparesis, like the toll that was having and the effect that was having on my body and my health was tremendous. Like I was not healthy. Like I was not feeling good. I definitely think it added to like a mentally degrading like factor too. And it's definitely something that I had to, for me, like really check myself on. But I think it's something that honestly everyone kind of needs to be aware of and check themselves on, as in America, we frame this as such a social enhancer. It's like, only if you want to have fun, you might as well be popped off a Xan and fucking high and on a bar and drinking lean and sipping whatever and popping perks and on Molly. Like, no. You know what? You need to have fun. You need to have a good experience with good people that want to be around you and that you want to be around. Maui. Hey, Maui's over here. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but Maui's scratching at my door right now. He's like, bitch, it is food time, and you're still in the podcast, motherfucking recording. But yes, like, I honestly think there is some great gain. Like, in a lot of situations in America specifically, drinking and socializing is normalcy. And on a business sense, there's a lot of positive business you can do, like out socializing, drinking, having a good time, hanging out with people. But it very quickly can become something that is more of like a fun enhancer, that you end up every time you go out, you have a drink with your friends or a couple drinks, and a couple drinks turns into 3, turns into 5, turns into a pretty consistent habit that at the very least is probably not doing great things to your health nor your like actual finances. So I definitely think it's really important to realize that like alcohol should be used very strategically, and it shouldn't be something that is, oh, let's go fucking party and get hella fucked up all the time. Like, because there's no positive gain, there's only detraction to be had. So work and rework your relationship with all substances constantly, as it's something that you mature with and changes with growth and changes all the time. But specifically, I think it's really important to be able to self-check ourselves. And when you stop self-checking yourself, it just creates a dynamic of starting to lose yourself in whatever substance you're consuming, losing responsibility, losing self-responsibility, and it, if you allow it to, will consume you and eat you fucking whole. And that happens to a lot of people all the time. It's all too common, actually. So, well, I think that was 10 points. The 10 things that I would have told my little old wee self, my little self, my 16-year-old self, 18-year-old self, 20-year-old self. I still tell myself today, honestly. Most of these are still rules that I would say I apply to my everyday life to try to live with, I don't know, just some moral boundaries, I guess. Like, I'm not really inherently religious. I was raised religious. But I really like the stance of if you say, someone's, do you believe in God? Saying that you believe in God, if you're like, if you're a rational person, it dissuades from a lot, because you can be like, oh, you believe in a man up in the sky? Oh, well, then you don't believe in this, and this either. Which is, it's a dangerous path to go down with some people who want to argue in ration. So I like the idea that I live like there is a God. I live like there is a God. I don't fucking know. Well, I think that is actually just about all I really do have to actually cover today. So I definitely hope every single one of you beautiful people is having a absolutely wonderful day. I definitely hope if you guys are going through anything shitty, I was able to either provide at least some kind of insight to anything at all, or maybe a quick laugh or a positive vibe, a goof, a gaff, a meme, whatever you need. I hope I was able to provide it. I got all the services here. I sound like a massage parlor at this point. Alrighty, guys. I think that's, like I said, though, all I really have. So I love you all. I will definitely see you on the next episode. And, yeah. Bye.